Let's return to our top story now. And the Home Office is contacting tens of thousands of foreign students directly to warn that they will be removed from the UK if they overstay their visas, as the government continues to face pressure over its record on immigration.
We can speak live now to the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, who joins us from Westminster. Good morning. Good to see you.
John.
How much difference will this new scheme of contacting students make to the overall migration and asylum-seeking numbers?
It's one of a series of different practical steps. We did inherit a system that was broken, really, on both asylum and immigration. We're taking a series of practical steps to tackle the chaos and to make sure that we've got a system that is ordered and controlled again. On this particular issue, what we've seen is up to 15,000 students each year end up claiming asylum as they come to the end of their visa, even when things haven't changed in their home country. Then going into the asylum system, sometimes staying there for years, that also causes problems with asylum accommodation and hotels. That's what we need to fix. We obviously will do our bit to support genuine refugees, and it's why, for example, we're helping Gaza students to be able to leave the country and take up their scholarships here in the UK. But if nothing has changed in their country, people should not be claiming asylum at the end of a student course. We need to clamp down on that kind of misuse, and that's why we're sending these messages to be very clear to people. The asylum system is not for people who just want to extend their visas.
So 15,000 held a student study visa, but there was a total of over 110,000 people claiming asylum in the UK last year, which is so the students only make up, like 13%. So even if you send them all back to their home countries, it's not going to make that big a difference to the overall figures, is it?
Well, it's a significant part of it because what you have to do is tackle every single bit of the system. It's why we're also changing some of the family reunion rules. It's why we're also strengthening border security, bringing in the new agreement with France so that we can return people who have arrived by small boat, can actually be returned to France for the first time as part of that pilot scheme. We've also increased the returns of failed asylum seekers by 30% in the last 12 months. And we're in the process of now preparing a full overhaul of the asylum system, including overhauling the appeal system, which is taking far, far too long, so that we can then end asylum hotel use as well. So, look, you're right, there's lots of different factors in all of this, but we have to take action on every single one of them. It's that serious and steady, hard graft, which is how we'll turn this chaos around and how we'll actually get the practical progress that we need.
On the French scheme, the so-called one in, one out scheme, that's what you've called it. I know you have detained a number of people to be sent back to France. They supposedly can be sent back to France. But how many have actually been sent back to France since that policy came in?
Well, the treaty was signed just 4 weeks ago, so we have been moving at pace to get new systems into place. This is a trial process, remember. This is a pilot process that we need to then build. We expect the first returns to take place later this month. The first detentions have already taken place. The first cases have been referred to France as part of the next step in the process. But these are new arrangements. It's never been done before. This is important and it is groundbreaking. There's also a principle underpinning it, which is if you're arriving on these illegal routes, if you've paid criminal gangs, paid organised immigration crime, making these dangerous journeys, then we believe you should be returned wherever possible. And in return, what we should be doing is supporting those who have applied through a legal process, been through security checks, played by the rules, and those who need sanctuary from persecution and conflict. And that is the right, sensible and fair approach to take.
Sure. No, I appreciate that the France scheme is a new scheme. It's a pilot scheme. And I guess there are legal challenges that could happen as well. So it's difficult to be precise. But I think our viewers would really like to know, by the end of this month, when you say you'll start sending people back to France, what kind of numbers are we talking about, say, by the end of September? What's your hope?
Well, it'll only be the first phase, and we need to build this.
OK, so but how many?
What we're doing is we're basically providing reports step by step as we do so. We're doing the opposite of what the previous government did with their Rwanda scheme. If you remember, they effectively said everybody was going to be sent to Rwanda, and they ran the scheme for 2 years. And in practice, no one was sent. All they managed to do was send 4 volunteers who were effectively paid.
But nobody's been sent to France yet under your scheme.
Yeah, but what we're doing is in a very different way. We are now a month on from having signed this treaty. We've moved very fast to get the new systems in place and to get the first detentions in place. We will provide updates as it happens and as we get the first returns in place. But we're being very clear and honest with people. It's a pilot scheme. It needs to build step by step. But that is how you deliver results. You start and you build something and you make things work step by step. That's how you get results in the end, not by making grand sweeping promises that actually people never deliver and end up undermining trust. And I think we've seen rather too much of that from opposition parties who are just doing effectively shouting at the sea rather than what are the practical steps we're going to take.
But you know what? We look at our inbox every single morning, and on this issue, so many people get in touch with us every day and say they want to see more. You say it's incremental, it's step by step. They want you to be radical. They want to see results right now. Do you understand their frustration?
Oh, completely. This is one of the biggest problems we face. And the small boat crossings, the asylum hotels across the country, these are some of the biggest problems that we face. And that's why we've made this priority as part of a central part of the Prime Minister's plan for change to turn this round. So bear in mind, we've already had a big increase in enforcement and returns. 35,000 people with no right to be in the UK have been returned this year. And that is a 28% increase in returns of failed asylum seekers.
Yes, OK,
that's
but we're also
important.
looking at record numbers of people coming over here in the first place, aren't we? 50,000 on your watch already.
And we've seen the numbers for August were better. They were lower than any August previously, even though the number of crossing days was very similar and the weather similar to last year. But that's not a consolation because you're right. The small boat crossings are a serious problem. Our next steps on this is we need not just the pilot programme with France, but also the new counter-terrorism powers to be able to go after the criminal gangs. At the moment, the Conservatives and Reform have been opposing those, but we believe we need those powers in very rapidly. Also will include new powers to be able to download the phones of mobile phones of people who are arriving on those small boats so that we can then go after the criminal gangs, but particularly treating the smuggler gangs like terrorism, like giving it that level of seriousness and that level of powers for our National Crime Agency, for our Border Force to be able to take action. Okay. Those powers are currently being held up in the House of Lords as a result of opposition from other parties. We need that through as rapidly as possible so we can go after those gangs.
Keir Starmer did a bit of a reshuffle of his team yesterday morning, and he said that's all about delivery, focusing on delivering on the government's priorities. But, I mean, what's going on? You were ahead in the polls massively for 2 years before the election. You then got a huge majority. He was saying before the election that he wanted to hit the ground running and deliver. And you're still announcing what you're admitting are incremental changes to a policy that's been a problem for years on immigration.
Well, as I said, I think there are areas that we have made big progress already, including the big increase in returns, also a big increase, a 50% increase in raids and arrests on illegal working. But my point is, shouldn't
you have been doing this as soon as you came into government? Shouldn't you have been better prepared for delivering?
Well, actually, some of those actions that we're taking now are things we've been working on over the course of the last year. So the work with France to get these new agreements in place, we started working on before Christmas last year. It's been a lot of work and diplomacy to get that agreement in place. The new legislation we published, that's been going through Parliament and taking time to go through Parliament this year. But look, you're totally right that what we want to see now is an acceleration. We've got further meetings later today about the acceleration that we need to see, both in tackling the small boats and also in the progress around ending asylum hotels.
Okay.
We've saved £1 billion on the cost of asylum hotels already, but what we have to do now is the complete overhaul of the asylum system to clear numbers out.
But the number of asylum hotels has hardly dropped, has it, since you came into government a year ago? The Prime Minister told the BBC yesterday that he wants to close all those asylum hotels by the time of the next general election by 2029, but he's now suggesting he wants to do it even sooner than that, which I know a lot of people watching will welcome. But how much sooner? What's the new target date?
Yeah, we do want to do that sooner. The manifesto commitment was to end asylum hotels over the course of this Parliament, but we've always wanted to do that more swiftly. We do believe it can be done more quickly, but the key things we need to do is we've got to clear the backlog, and that means this action, for example, overhauling the appeals system. That is now the biggest course. We've got tens of thousands of people in asylum accommodation just waiting for appeals because that appeal system we inherited is broken. But it does also mean practical steps, for example, preventing students from claiming asylum when they really shouldn't be because nothing has changed in their home country. So preventing people going into the asylum system in the first place. So we want action on all of those steps alongside identifying more appropriate sites as well to get people out of hotels. So we're going to do all of these things all at once as rapidly as possible because we do recognise every community wants to see an end to the asylum hotels that have been across the country.
Okay.
It's around half the level it was at its peak under the Conservatives, but we need to end all of them.
And just a reminder, it was the Conservatives who brought it down by half pretty much before the election, and it's hardly come down since.
Do you know what? It is worth saying, though, what they left us with, this is really important, because they stopped taking asylum decisions in the last 3 months before the general election. If we'd carried on with the system that we inherited from them, we'd have had tens of thousands more people in asylum hotels by now, because what they were doing was they weren't returning people and they'd stopped taking asylum decisions. So we've had to get asylum decisions started again and accelerate and increase returns. That's meant we've prevented those additional tens of thousands of people going into the asylum system as a result of what we inherited. But now we've actually got to make that progress to bring those numbers right down and end hotels altogether. OK, before we let you go, we've talked quite a lot about flags on the programme over the last couple of weeks. People have seen in their communities in England flags of St George going up, Union flags. The Prime Minister said he's comfortable with that and has a flag on display in his flat. Are you comfortable with it? And do you have a flag on display in your home, on your home? Yeah. We actually have Union Jack bunting on our garden shed at the moment. I've got St George's flags, I've got St George's bunting, I've got the Yorkshire Rose bunting as well. I've got Union Jack flags and tablecloths. We've got the lot. I've even actually got some Yorkshire tea bunting, which is probably taking things a bit far. But I think the point about having the flags is to have really something that brings us together. It's the symbols that should bring us together as a country, and whether that's about celebrating the England, celebrating Britain and our values as well that underpin that. But I think those values are about decency, about fairness and about togetherness, and it's really important that we use our flags to bring people together and not to try and divide people, as sometimes people try to do.
And you're comfortable with all the flags we're seeing up at the moment? Because some people are worried by it.
Well, we often have flags all over the place. We put flags up in our garden when we have a summer barbecue. We have flags around our office. We fly the St George's flag over Pontefract Castle for St George's Day in my constituency as well. So I think those flags can be really important. But I really do also think those flags need to be the signs of the country coming together and not be used to try and pull people apart.
Home Secretary, thank you for your time.
Thank you.